This is the Mobile Tech Podcast, brought to you by worldpodcasts.com. Now here's your host, Tech Girl, Miriam Joie.
Brought to you by Infineon. Hi and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joie, and today is January 11th, 2024. We're at CES 2024, and I'm here with Bill Stewart of Infineon to talk about chipsets in cars and generally semiconductors in cars. So, Bill, you guys are like the cream of the crop when it comes to semiconductors in the car world. You know, I cover a lot of car tech and EV related content for my writing on Tech Radar, and obviously, I write about software-defined vehicles all the time. I write about, connectivity. I write about infotainment, all the things that you folks touch, drivetrain too. So Tell us a little bit about where you can find Infineon chips in an EV.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome.
We talk about Infineon content in vehicles. One of our unique value propositions is we provide content into just about every application and every module in the car.
Right.
And what we are trying to do, we have two things we like to say. We want to drive digitalization and decarbonization. And we do that in two ways. One, the EV plays a very heavy role in that.
Yeah.
Right? And when you look at an EV compared to a traditional gas vehicle, you go from roughly $500 of semiconductor content in the car, and that about triples in an EV.
I'm actually surprised only 3 times.
Well, it depends on the vehicle. When you talk about now adding autonomous features and other things, you now have more than 3 times.
I mean, I'd like to think that at this point, you can guarantee ADAS is going to be in every car. Like any modern car.
For sure.
Like,
I mean, level 2.
I think we're going to have some ICE, like internal combustion engine cars that are going to start falling off the cliff without ADAS. But it's kind of inconceivable to me that even the few ICE vehicles that are going to be left in hybrids over the next 10 years are going to probably gain ADAS.
And that's why you see a lot of the software-defined vehicle and connectivity trends that you mentioned coming, right? A lot of those are not just the EV, it's also the ADAS features that drive a lot of the data and a lot of these sensors that are coming into the car that really create the need for that.
And I think, that's why you guys are at the forefront of this, right? Like, I think that's one of the reasons why even ICs going forward, as they're fading away and EVs are taking over, are going to get the ADAS functionality and this crazy infotainment stuff with multi-screens and stuff that you're doing, right?
It's an exciting time.
And, I think the industry is going to shift to 48 volt as well, which, for you guys doing a lot of power electronics is going to be, a big deal as well, because you have to be at the forefront of that switch. Your suppliers for OEMs are, slowly adapt, and you need to provide them with, MOSFETs, switching chipsets for motor controls, for just the window, winders and stuff, et cetera.
So that's the digitalization part of the car that we're talking about, right? You think about a lot of systems today that are traditional mechanical things that like braking systems, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you press your brake, it stops, right? There's a pump, goes to a hydraulic motor.
But we're going to independent hydraulic pumps at each wheel now.
No hydraulics.
The systems I've seen are using hydraulics just for like 3 inches, to activate the caliper from a pump. But my point, you're going to basically completely electrified everything.
Yeah, that's really the entire thing, which from a electronics point of view and semiconductor supplier is great. Right. We're trying to develop a lot of new content, really expand our roadmaps, and also focus on integration, right? Because there's a transition happening right now where you have systems today, which are relatively mature, which have to change quite a bit.
Yep.
And the requirements for all those systems are changing. And a big thing as you make these changes is, there's a lot of risk that comes with those changes. And
I write about that a lot, and how risk averse the industry is in general. It's good to see Infineon being, in some ways being ready, and also kind of very gently poking everyone in the right direction. Look at what you can do with our systems.
What we like to call is we provide dependable electronics. Right. And what that means is we have high quality. So we measure our quality in parts per billion for the numbers of the returns. If you talked about the entire production that we do for automotive in a year, about 2 seconds of that production for a full year would be actually we see returns from. So we're trying to reduce risk that way.
Right.
Security is a major factor. We have a lot of consumer IP that we brought over into the automotive area to help drive secure technologies, as well as functional safety. And functional safety is something that doesn't get talked about as much, but that's really how, when a failure occurs in the vehicle, whether it's our component, whether it's an external failure, whether it's something, how does the vehicle respond? Right? Does it continue to drive? Does it set a warning light? Does it veer off into the wrong lane? We don't want that, right?
You don't want that.
And so functional safety is something that we really spend a lot of time and energy to integrate into our devices and provide tools for our customers so they can design safe systems that ultimately, as a driver or passenger in an AV, you feel comfortable with. And that's where the dependable electronics, we want the consumer to feel that this is a dependable product.
Right. So let's, for the audience to kind of educate them a little bit, let's go through what's in a typical sold today, maybe came out last year, IC car. What are the kind of components you supply? And then let's compare that to, say, a brand new EV from last year, model year, that you also work with, maybe the same company, without mentioning them. But just give us an idea, like, what are the kind of categories? I know there's power, there is going to be communications, there's going to be sensors. Let's go through all of that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, it's a very similar product portfolio, right? Most of the EVs on the market have a lot of shared components with their...
their anything that's body control is going to be pretty much the same, for example.
But if you look at where it starts to differentiate, it's really more in the user experience, the ADAS, and then obviously the powertrain.
Right.
And when you look at the ADAS, let's start there. You tend to see higher levels of autonomous features in the EVs. That's a coupling we're seeing with the industry. There's a lot of reasons for that. One is, though, having those autonomous features does help increase your range. Because if you're in an autopilot or an adaptive cruise control mode, you're not hitting the gas and brakes hard. Your range is better. So there is a trade-off there as well, which is part of the reason you see that. But what you see there is a lot more radar sensors, a lot more cameras, higher compute systems, and we provide a lot of the infrastructure for those ADAS systems. We don't provide the high-end SoCs, but everything around the SoCs, all the sensors around the vehicle. And then what that drives is redundancy through the traditional systems. So you talk about even a gas car today, if you have a level 2 system where the vehicle is actually driving and doing turns, keep doing your lane
you're
keep.
just monitoring, and it's lane keep and radar cruise control.
Your steering system now has to have redundancy, right? You can't just have a single path on your steering system. You have to have redundant MOSFETs, redundant gate drivers, redundant microcontrollers.
It makes sense.
So that you have a backup in case something fails.
Yeah.
So we see a lot of that, and that's impacting both the ICE and EV space.
Right.
If we look at the powertrain area, this is where it's radically different.
Radically different.
Right?
You guys are like probably tenfold more electronics. Instantly.
That's where we're putting a lot of energy and a lot of focus right now, because, you hear a lot in the industry about silicon carbide, the big high voltage products to basically convert your battery energy ultimately to propulsion in the inverter.
And the other way around.
Yeah. Both you want to regen
when
too.
you regen.
But it's not just the inverter.
Yeah.
Right. It's also, you have onboard chargers, you have DC to DC converters. The battery management systems
BMS
are something which is very complicated. And I mean, you saw with some of the public concerns with EVs, with fires and how you manage the battery system.
Absolutely.
So we're actually putting a lot of energy right now into sensors, which can make the battery pack safer.
Right.
And so having pressure sensors or hydrogen sensors to detect if an issue occurs early.
Yeah.
How you can shut things down.
Because right now it's mostly thermal and electrical current measurement, voltage measurement. And by the time something bad happens, it's generally you're in a let's contain this fire best we can situation, which generally doesn't work well.
No, you don't want that either. So,
but I don't want to scare you from EVs, folks, because I've had them for 6 years and have zero issues. So.
Yeah, it's pretty rare. Yeah. But when it does happen, it's a big
it's at least with an EV now you can put extra sensors to detect this earlier.
Right.
Whereas it's a lot harder to control a traditional car fire as well if it's coming from a fuel system or something.
Exactly.
So that was a good example, I think, of some of the things. You also have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth portfolio products, which become very critical as, car keys are going using Bluetooth or ultra wideband, as vehicles want to connect to Wi-Fi or provide Wi-Fi. I know you don't do 5G chipsets, I don't think, but in the same way as you don't do the, AP, the application processors for the infotainment. But at the same time, without the components that Infineon makes, and none of this awesome NVIDIA and Qualcomm and Intel stuff we hear about for the car would work, because you need all the sensors, you need all the power electronics, and managing powers becomes a big deal. And I want to talk to you about, since in the focus of decarbonization, and being more environmentally conscious, EVs are not just naturally easier to manage there, but I think there's a whole aspect of, we are adding so much infotainment to the cars, like multiple displays. They all consume energy. They all heat up. And compute power for ADAS is just exponential every year or two. And that's just drawing a lot more energy from the battery pack. So making more efficient power chips and, more efficient systems in general to control all of these complex systems is another area where you guys are key, right?
Yeah, it's not only just the power management to make things more efficient, it's also to make it reliable.
Yeah,
right? Because part of what we see is you need to have redundant power sources for a lot of these systems as well. It's not just a matter of having the system operate, but you do get a power surge or something, you don't want to lose your functionality.
Right.
And one of the things that we tend to see is the wiring in the vehicle, because of these higher currents, is now more susceptible.
Of course.
And so we make products which not only manage all the power, but also protect the physical wires.
Right.
We have what are called load guard, wire guard type products, which, also are working for fuse replacements. So you don't have a fuse anymore.
Yeah. I mean, Tesla been doing this for years, and, the industry at first was like, what? And now, like, everybody's doing it too.
Yeah.
Right?
We're all used to have, my lights died. I have to go find that little thing in the
It doesn't
corner.
exist anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty magical. If you plug something into your car and, like, say the cigarette adapter, the few cars that have one left, and you plug something and you overload it. In the old days, you had to go find the fuse box, pull the fuse and replace it. Yeah. Now it just stops working. You unplug the offending piece, and a few seconds or minutes later, it comes back, and you're good to go. So,
but that same system is being applied for
everywhere, for everything. And then, you talked about wiring, and I think that's another area there's a big revolution happening.
Yeah.
And I think you're involved in that to some extent as well, where, wiring is, again, switching from 12 volt to 48 volt helps because you can use thinner wires because the current is lower, because, power is a result of voltage times current. So you increase the voltage to 48 from 12, 4 times. You can now have 4 times less current. But the magic is that the size of the cable is not a linear relationship, right? So the thickness of the copper you need to use in your product and your vehicle, it adds up over all these wires going back and forth all across the car. And it's not just power, it's also the communications. And so I think there's a big revolution happening here. And I wrote about this on Tech Radar with regards to, like, I think I talked about 5 areas in which the Cybertruck is innovating in terms of tech. Whether you like the product or not, you're interested in it or not, you like the company or not, they're doing 5 things that are very unique. And one of them was the wiring system, because going to 48 volts helps, going to 800 volt for the big battery system, the propulsion. And then, of course, the communications. And you are probably very involved in communications as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, we're involved in all of those. And one of the areas that also you see, and this comes back to the software-defined vehicle, is connected to this as well. The fundamental electrical architecture that the OEMs are using is changing, right? You have these central compute boxes, you have these zonal modules, and what you see is less concern about where a feature, traditionally a feature was tied to its module. Yeah. Right? A braking system was tied to the braking module.
Right. Even the seat controller you had to control each seat for just the motors in that seat.
Yeah. Where now you're seeing a lot of the software be integrated together, and that changes the entire distribution of where you're doing sensing, how you're doing these actuators. And that impacts our microcontroller portfolio, impacts our sensor portfolio, our power portfolio, as we have to adapt to the different ways things are being integrated.
I was actually going to ask you about that because there's a trend in the industry, again, to reduce the number of local microcontrollers, right? And basically have more centralized compute on everything.
Correct.
And so because you make a lot of microcontrollers, how do you handle that? Because you now have to kind of offload that to the AP, right? I mean, obviously you can get into the AP business, I presume. That would be the way to go. But
So I think what we see is, yes, there's a trend to move things into these central compute boxes. At the same time, you're still adding a lot of functionality to the car.
So it's still lots of microcontrollers.
There's still lots of micros. And, it may be, if we go back to that braking example, you had one microcontroller previously to control the braking system. Maybe two if you had redundancy.
Exactly.
Now you have a micro in each wheel.
Yeah.
So, maybe it's a smaller micro. Maybe it's different requirements, but it's not necessarily less because you still need some sort of processing.
And you need 4 times more MOSFETs and more, control electronics.
Right.
Because everything has a motor of some kind or a pump of some kind or something.
Yeah, but this is where we have different solutions we can offer.
Right.
We can go with a discrete solution with micros and gate drivers and MOSFETs all separate, or we have our Motix family, which integrates some of that together. So, some of these more cost-optimized body applications, you can almost go with a single chip type application.
So we've talked about where things are going a little bit, but where do you think the biggest change is still yet to come in terms of what you provide and where you think Infineon is going to be getting stronger with their portfolio because you're anticipating the needs of your car OEMs and suppliers?
Yeah, you can see on the investments we've made, we've been making billions and billions of investments the last couple of years in our production facilities. And that really tells the story of where we see the growth. Obviously, the high voltage products, the power products that are driving these EVs, the silicon carbide, that's a huge growth area.
Yeah.
That just as EVs more adopted, there's a ton of content.
And you can always get a little more efficiency every year, right?
Exactly.
In transmitting that power and converting it.
So that's a huge growth area. But I'd say the rest of the sensor and power products in the vehicle will also continue to explode.
Of course.
And that's where you've seen some of our other announcements, other investments have been in some of our smart power technologies, our MOSFET technologies, even our memory products. All these compute systems need memory. Yeah. And we provide NOR flash.
Yeah.
So, there's, like I said, there's a lot of infrastructure around all this that we're a part of. And, we see a lot of growth and optimism, regardless of how much EVs really do adopt and what that curve looks like. We see a good path.
Well, listen, that's great. I think we've covered a lot of bases here. And I think hopefully the audience comes away understanding a little better what Infineon does with EVs and in the car business, but also more importantly, kind of some of the problems the industry is running into that you're solving and where we're going. I think this is what I've been writing about a lot, is trying to tell people, hey, your car's going to be very different very soon. And for you, it's just going to be a better experience. But it also means that for the environment, for the world we live in, it's going to be a better experience and for all of us, right?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for being on the show, Bill.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
All right. Well, and we'll continue with the news from CES 2024. And we're back, folks. I've got Adam Dowd here, benefit of the doubt. Hi, Adam.
Hell yeah. How you doing?
How's it going?
It is going long because of the CES.
So we're at CES 2024, and I decided that it might be fun to do a bit of a smaller show and focus on a few items that we thought were really outstanding.
Nice.
So I want to kind of go through the 5 things that you thought really stood out for you at CES.
Okay.
Now, I want to preface this. We haven't seen everything. It's impossible.
Oh my God.
There's a bunch of big brands that I completely missed, but we have seen a lot of stuff.
What's the biggest brand you missed? I'm just curious.
Well, I didn't manage to make it to Kia.
Okay.
Which had a bunch of concepts which were really interesting.
Yeah, I heard Kia was.
I didn't manage to make it to LG.
Okay.
I didn't see Sony either.
I missed Sony too. That was actually going to be mine when I asked what yours was. That was my.
I mean, ultimately, it's really difficult to do everything when you're a one-person show.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I actually have a team. Like we have 3 people here, editorially speaking. There's me. There's Dave McQuilling, who's one of our freelancers, and then there's Chris Davies, who I met for the first time in person.
Are you serious?
Serious? He's a lot smaller than I thought he was. He's a little guy.
He is a little guy.
Yeah.
But he's a big guy. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, no,
like,
he's huge.
He's a celebrity in his own right. Look, I think what stood out for me at CES is that it seemed to be as big as it was before COVID for the first time.
I would argue yes. It was also very like, at least my coverage was very heavily computing focused, which is pretty CES. But there was some really cool stuff, especially in the computing end. Some great audio that I saw.
Okay.
Yeah. So we could talk all about it.
So let's start with what was your number one thing that really kind of blew your mind and really you feel like made the show for you?
So there's a company called Brain. Brane, not Brain. It's short.
How clever.
It's short for membrane.
Oh, okay.
And there's a story behind that, but we won't get into it because it's a long story. They make a portable speaker with a built-in subwoofer, which on its own doesn't sound like a really big deal, but folks, this sound is mind-blowing. Like, it is like, so they did a demo for me. They did a demo with their speaker and then a competing speaker, a very well-known brand competing speaker. And so they played theirs first, and then they switched over to the competing speaker, like in the middle of an Ariana Grande song. And like, I did this demo twice, and like every single time, everybody in the demo was like,
oh my.
Whoa. I mean, it was like, if you have a sound bar on your TV, throw it in the garbage because it sounds like crap compared to this stuff.
So it's a soundbar with a built-in sub.
I mean, it's not even a soundbar. It's a portable speaker. It's like
a Bluetooth speaker.
So, like, you know when you buy a set of computer speakers and they got the two little speakers and then they got the big subwoofer on the bottom? This is the size of that subwoofer on the floor, but it's a subwoofer, it's two mid-range speakers, it's two tweeters, and a 12-hour battery.
And you can put it on a surface of any kind.
Yep, you can put it like underneath your TV. You can take it out into a party. It's got an IPX rating. I mean, it's amazing. It's also, in fairness, $600. But I mean, when you think about like what a really good soundbar costs you,
how does it compare to what Devialet does?
To whoever?
Devialet.
I don't.
French company.
I'm not familiar.
Super high end audio. Some of it is portable.
I mean, if you're calling them super high end, probably not.
I mean,
well.
we're talking like their portable speaker also has incredible bass and is about $600.
Okay,
I think it would be a good comparison.
It's probably a fair comparison. And this dude who's the founder of the company, he's like one of those like genius physicists guys, and told the whole story. I mean, the whole story would take up this entire podcast, so I won't do it. But if check it out, it's very well worth checking.
So Brain, Brane.
Hell yeah!
All right, my number one would be Clicks, because I'm a hipster.
Sure.
And anything that's cool, I get attracted to like flies. So, I think at this show, this was the kind of high cool factor. You know, look, I'm old, but the youngs, they use the earbuds with wires again because it's fashionable and cool.
Crazy.
And so wouldn't it make sense, especially since teenagers are obsessed with the iPhone, to make a retro BlackBerry keyboard case for the iPhone?
Sure.
Because they would be all over it. And as a hipster, it pulls on my heartstrings or my earbud strings.
Yeah. I mean, I got into this industry because of the Palm Pre and like the physical keyboard there. So like, I'm all about physical keyboards, but in this particular case, Clicks, I don't think it's for me, but that doesn't mean it's not cool. You know, I need to use it. I need to use it a lot. And so, you know, we'll see how I feel about it when February rolls around and it starts shipping. But yeah, I mean, it's cool, and it definitely has a purpose.
You know how, as journalists, we have so much experience having a gut feeling about product, how it's right. Like, it might not be successful because the markets are complicated. And it might just be a niche product, but a successful niche product.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about successful or right in the sense of like, you know, Apple or Samsung phones that are, super popular.
We're not going to see an IPO anymore.
Right. But what I'm saying is, you get that gut feeling. You're like, they did everything right. The marketing is right.
Yeah.
The product design is right.
100%.
The engineering is right. Yep. The user experience is right. That they thought out all the details. They sweated the details.
Yes.
And rarely do you see a product come out of the gate that was announced literally a week before CES that is that polished in every respect. And I'm not surprised knowing the team, Crackberry Kevin, there is Michael Fisher, Captain Two Phones, Mr. Mobile, for those of you who don't know who Michael Fisher is. And of course, Crackberry Kevin ran crackberry.com back in the day. And he's a serial entrepreneur who's done a lot of stuff. And then, of course, there is, a bunch of other people on that team that I've worked with, part of the FX Tech phone back in the day.
Yeah, FX Tech.
Like, Adrian and Chen. And so, the team is great, but they also got a whole bunch of old BlackBerry, folks from the previous BlackBerry days.
Right.
And so they know what to do. And what I also love is that there is, besides the hipster factor and the coolness factor, there is also a practical point here with clicks.
Oh, yeah.
You are gaining back that real estate to create content.
Yep.
Like say you're creating a reel for Instagram, now you can type that text without taking a third of your screen away from the virtual keyboard.
And not only that, and this occurred to me during my demo, when you're in a reel or an Instagram or whatever, and you're typing in your text, when you go to type in that text, the whole UI gets shoved up so that the keyboard has room to come in. So now you have to tap it in and okay, how does that look? Oh, no, I don't quite like that. Now you have to tap it. It gets shoved up again. You got to. So, this really does solve that problem. So if you're a big time creator, this is going to be a product for you.
And I still think I type faster on glass, honestly.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I have never been a BlackBerry, aficionado. I've appreciated BlackBerries.
Yeah.
And I had one for a while. And when the Key 1 and Key 2 came out, I reviewed them very favorably because I thought they did a very good job with these phones.
Hell yeah, the Key 2 is
right.
banging.
The Key 2 in particular.
Yes.
But when you think about it, this is the right time. It's, in terms of fashions come and go, this is ripe to come back.
Yeah.
Number one, the iPhone is the most popular phone amongst the audience they're going after. Number two. Number three, some people want to input text a lot. And if they're faster at doing it on a keyboard than on glass, unlike me, then they have a product for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's your number two?
Number two would appropriately be the Asus Duo, which is...
So it's like a Lenovo 9i, but better.
Okay, I wasn't going to say it like that because I love...
Well, I love my 9i, but my point is, it's got to be a catch if it's your number two.
Well, yeah, so...
if it's just a Lenovo 9i with Asus branding, what's the point?
No, yeah, it's... in my words, Asus pantsed Lenovo and took its lunch money. Because not only do you get the dual screen, you get a smarter implementation with the keyboard because it actually folds up inside the... So for those of you who are listening or watching, the YogaBook 9i was a dual screen laptop that came with a separate little folio thing with the keyboard that folds into its own tripod and blah, blah, blah. You get a dual screen, top and bottom,
I love
side
it.
to side. So the Asus Duo is basically the same thing, except the keyboard fits inside the closed laptop, so you don't have to have the separate folio. The kickstand is built into the back of the laptop, so you don't have to have that folio at all. It's all one unit now. And not to mention, the big deal for me is the fact that you get a lot of I/O. You get a full-size HDMI port of that thing.
But it is too large. It's larger. It's 214-inch instead of 213-inch.
That is correct. So it is a little bit larger. Another smart thing that they did was they built in a full keyboard with trackpad that connects to the computer, or can connect to the computer, not only through Bluetooth, but also with pogo pins. So if the keyboard dies, you can attach it to the bottom screen, cover it up. That screen turns off. So it's not using power anymore, but the keyboard can get power through those pogo pins. And if I remember correctly, the keyboard has a backlight. I'm not positive about that, so don't.
Oh, that's a big improvement.
It is a big improvement.
That's the only thing I really miss.
Yeah.
But I have to say, look, I've seen the Asus. and I like what Asus does in general, but I'm a bit more of a Lenovo fan, and I'll tell you why. For me, it's once you look at it, because it's a bigger screen, 2 bigger screens, and the thing stores in the middle, it's thick. Like, I like how thin and light the 9i is, and the fact that the keyboard and the mouse can be stored separately somewhere else, and I'm like probably somewhere in my bag,
and you don't even have to use it if you don't want to.
And that's what I'm pointing.
Today I sat down for and it was only for 15 minutes, but I'm like, I'm not even going to bother with the keyboard. I just typed on the glass for 15 minutes because I had to bang something out real quick.
Yeah.
And I actually enjoy typing on surfaces I know a lot of people don't, but when the Surface, you remember when the original Surface came out with that tap cover?
Oh yeah,
I love that.
Everybody loved that. Hated.
Everybody hated that thing. I would not crap on it just because it was popular.
Cool.
So
all right, that's a good number 2.
Yeah, that's a good number 2.
My number 2 is going to be Rabbit.
Okay.
Again, I'm a hipster, and so look. Okay.
I didn't get a chance to see.
Let's rewind a little bit.
Hear all about
so here's the thing, right? The thing about Rabbit is, do you remember when we first saw Humane?
Oh yeah,
pin,
sure.
When the rumors and that hype they built up about it. Do you remember all that?
I do.
It was so pretentious. And this is coming from somebody who lives in Silicon Valley, has worked in the tech industry, not just on the journalist side, but on the product side.
Right.
I know, and I'm used to the level of douchery you get in Silicon Valley.
Yeah, it's pretty.
But the moment I saw their kind of slow creep of, ex-Apple people, big investors, big name, I'm like, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. You're creating a story you can't cash, know?
Right.
And I got that bad vibe. And look, I'm not saying Humane isn't great. I don't know. I don't have one.
Don't know.
I'm probably not going to review it. I don't want to pan something I haven't tested. And it could be fantastic for all I know. But I get the feeling from the demos and what we've seen so far, right? I've got a feeling that it's not going to be that.
Right.
And so along comes this little company, just like Clicks. A week before CES, they reach out to us and go, hey, we're doing something cool. And then come to our thing. It's similar to Humane, but much more accessible. And it immediately was less pretentious, the messaging and everything around it. And so I was like, okay, let's check it out. And then the next thing you know, it's $199.
So it
doesn't require a subscription.
It's a device.
Takes any SIM card.
So it is a device like the Humane.
It's very much like the Humane Clips.
Really?
Or since it lives in your pocket, it has a little display on it, unlike the projector.
Well, crap.
Right?
I don't want to go see
so imagine you took a phone and you cut it in half.
Okay.
And you had a display that was 2.8 inches.
Okay.
And the other third part of it, because it's a rectangular display and the thing is square.
Yeah.
So the leftover third is a scroll wheel and a camera that can rotate 360 degrees. So it can be hidden, or it can face forward or face backwards.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then a USB-C port.
Nice.
And of course a microphone.
Yeah.
And now imagine that it has the same functionality as a Humane pin. It runs an AI assistant called Rabbit that animates on the screen cutely, and you can ask it things, and it does them for you. It fetches that information for you. But here's the best part.
Okay.
They created their own large language model.
Okay.
Right? And they made it so that you can program it to run tasks that exist on your in your ecosystem. So for example, you can tell it, you can say, this is how you call an Uber for me.
Oh.
And then you teach it that task, and when you say, hey, call me an Uber, it uses your location, blah, 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 and then it feeds it to, So I don't know exactly how it works on the back end. Is it running Android where the Android Uber app is in the back end and it does all this for you? I don't know. Or is it connected to your phone? I'm not sure.
Let me pause you for a second real quick. Are they exhibiting at CES or did they have a booth? Or?
They had a press event that I missed.
Okay.
And they've been kind of going around with devices.
So they don't have a booth or anything?
No. And they're going to be shipping in February.
Okay, well,
kind of like Clicks, right after Chinese New Year.
I need to reach out because
March.
You have my attention. So I did not get a chance to meet with them. So,
but basically, I'm not exactly sure how it works. But the idea is that you can teach it how to do some things for you using this LLM. So it's a proper generative AI, and it's properly capable of learning things, but without any of the pretense of You needed a subscription. Like you can put a SIM in it. You don't have to.
You can pair it on your
it's
phone.
we're not sure exactly how that works. I haven't really seen, they haven't really shown us too much, but at least it's just $199.
Yeah.
And it seems that you can customize it to do what you need, your assistant, as it were, your rabbit.
Mm-hmm.
And, it is, Teenage Engineering designed the industrial design.
Really?
Which is why it's so cool.
Once again, the more you talk, the more I want to see this. So,
and that's what I'm saying. So for me, like, I don't know much about it. And maybe I'm like, because of my hipsterness, is it making me kind of favor this thing? Because, like clicks, I got the bug, I caught it. But like, it seems much more of a realistic product, of a well put together product to start with than Humane.
BRB, I'm emailing their PR rep as we speak.
You should.
Because I ran into him at the thing that we were just at.
Yeah, we were at a party just now.
And I was like, "What is that?" And he's like, "Oh, so it's the same." I'm like, "No, yeah, don't work. We're at a party. We'll do it later." But
it is about a little past midnight, so there's context. That's why we're slurry and my voice is kind of messed up.
Yes, I promise you.
And we're very tired because
tired
it's been
to be drunk, but
it's been very, very, very many days at CES.
Yeah.
For reference, we're recording this on Wednesday night.
Technically Thursday morning.
Yeah, right. You're right. Thursday morning. So let's see. What's your number 3?
So after number 2, it starts to get a little fuzzy. Like it's really hard to kind of like definitively say, "Oh yes, that." So I've got a couple of different things, and we'll do 3, 4, 5. It'll be fine. So I would say number 3, and I'm just going strictly in chronological order here because that's how my spreadsheet's laid out. I talked to a company called Mudra Bands. And what they are a wearable. They designed a watch band that goes on your Apple Watch. And it tracks your biometrics through like sensors. I mean, it's a fairly thick watch band. It's like, I don't know, maybe like a quarter of an inch thick. I mean, it's bulky, but it's got these sensors that can detect your nerves and stuff like that. So like when you pinch your fingers, it knows. When you rotate your wrist, it knows. And
it's not using accelerometers, it's actually using sensing your nerves.
It's actually using like biometrics.
Oh, wow.
And what you can do with it is you can pair it up via Bluetooth with your Apple devices or with your Windows PC or whatever, and you can like minority report your computer.
I heard about that.
So you can so if I were sitting here right now and right before we started recording, you had to reach forward and do all your MacBook stuff, we could have sat back and done I'm going to move my cursor over here. I'm going to click, and then I'm going to drag the thing back here, and I'm going to let go, and then I'm going to hit record, and bing, bang, we're going.
So basically, your laptop sees it as a HID device. It's a keyboard mouse device.
Yeah.
Right, but it's a band that attaches to your watch.
And then there's an app that you can use on the watch that allows you to switch between devices. It's pretty seamlessly. It's pretty cool. I mean, it's one of those things that could potentially be pretty cool. It's also $400, I think. So,
ooh, that's a little pricey.
Yeah, it's not for the faint of heart. And it is an Apple Watch band, so you're already overpaying for technology anyway. So why not
actually a good it's a good audience that they pay.
It is a very good audience. But you can do your iPhone, you can do your iPad, you can do your MacBook, you can do a Windows PC. They showed me all these.
Yeah, but that's because it's HID. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
The other thing I forgot to mention with clicks earlier is the pricing is starts at $139, I think. Goes a little bit up from there for different size iPhones.
Yep.
And they support 14 Pro, 15 Pro, and 15 Pro Max right now.
So 14 Pro initially, and then 15 Pro Max.
A couple of weeks later, actually.
I think a couple of weeks later, and then the 15 Pro a couple of weeks after that.
Yeah. Because that's how much capacity they have in their tiny factory. It's probably not a tiny factory, but it's, my number 3 is probably a bunch of stuff I saw in Lenovo, not a specific thing.
Yep.
Lenovo is always very innovative, and I was very excited by 2 things in particular.
Okay.
The first thing was a ThinkBook, I think 13 or 14, ultra thin, ultra portable laptop with a Core Ultra chip from Intel, new chip. And
is that the one with the magnesium alloy?
Yeah, so there's a regular version that has their magnetic dock port where you can mount stuff on the back of the lid.
Your Moto Mod.
Right? The Moto Mod equivalent.
Yep.
There is one that doesn't have that, but it's super light because it's made of a magnesium alloy that's stainless. Because magnesium stains. And so it's super light, but it looks and feels like aluminum.
Yeah, it's like an alloy.
And then they made a concept that had an e-ink thing in the back.
Yeah, it's kind of like
I think it's called Prism. From e-ink. It's the company e-ink.
I got to that briefing a little bit late because I was actually looking at my number 4. And so as I walked in, they were introducing that. So I missed what the actual... It kind of looked e-ink-ish, but yeah, I think you're right.
It's
like
Prism.
LCD, yeah.
It might be I don't know what I think e-ink is the company, but whether it's an LCD technology or not, I don't know.
I probably took a picture.
The bottom line, I've got a bunch of shows. Actually, if you go to my Instagram, there's a video right now.
Oh, there you go.
But here's the thing about this. It's a concept.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen displays. Like I remember going to Computex 7, 8 years ago, and they had an Asus laptop at Computex that they launched that had 2 displays, one front, one back.
Okay.
I
remember.
OLED or LCD back, I don't know, it's 8 years ago or something, so it's a while back. Might have been OLED, and it was a concept as well, and they never sold it. And the idea was that you could put anything you want on the back of your laptop and customize it.
Right.
But it's not very practical when it's a display that's always on. So this is e-ink, so it doesn't consume any energy when it's not like refreshing.
Yep.
And it's color e-ink, so Prism is color. So maybe this is a good idea to like make your laptop custom, make it yours. But also you can display something. So if you want to show a slide deck or something to somebody that's sitting across from you, you can show them a slide deck. I really dig it. I hope it goes beyond the concept stage.
Yeah.
That was one thing.
Okay.
The other one that I was impressed with was the ThinkPad Plus, 15-inch.
Okay.
And the Plus ThinkPads are always, or ThinkBook, are always the ones where they experiment.
Okay.
Remember, they had one with an e-ink display and the lid, but like a tiny e-ink display that you can use. They had a bunch of different concepts over the years. But what this one does, this is not a concept, I believe.
This one's going to be
is that the actual lid of the laptop, the display part, comes off the laptop. Like
the original Surface
laptop.
Surface
laptop or a Surface Book.
Surface Book. Yeah.
Right? Like that. But the computer, the Intel computer, is the keyboard part.
Is in the keyboard part.
And the display is just a display, but it also has an ARM processor for Android.
Yep.
So what happens is this.
Snapdragon Gen 1 Plus.
8 plus Gen 1.
Gen 1, yeah. It's late.
And so here's the thing that's cool.
Trying to be all smart, and
what's cool about this is that the moment you detach the screen, you have an Android tablet in your hands. But the laptop is still running Intel, Windows, whatever was on the screen.
The keyboard,
And if you plug in the laptop into an external display at that point, you'll see whatever it was running on the external display.
Right.
Or as soon as you dock that Android tablet back, it switches back to Windows.
Did you know that there's also a key that allows you to switch it back to Android while it's docked? So
they didn't show me that. Yeah, but that makes sense.
So you can have an Android tablet. And to be clear, this is not dual booted. This is more like it's more like Android running almost concurrently.
It's 2 separate computers in one.
Yeah,
sharing a display.
But it's not like you have to shut down the computer and bring it back up.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's why the Android is always on. It's running in the background.
Yeah, and when you hit the button to switch it, or when you take the thing off, there's an animation where it's like it was like a space view of Earth. Yeah. And it would animate, so the Earth would spin out, and then it would be a new background with Android. It was pretty cool. I broke one while we were there. I took it off and I couldn't get it back on, and the screen wouldn't turn back on. So I'm like, Katie, I'm so sorry. But I was breaking stuff all day today.
And then what I liked about it too was that, at first, if you look at it from a distance, it's just another 15-inch laptop.
Yeah.
But then you look on the lid and there's 2 cameras.
Yeah.
Right, because it's an Android tablet.
Yeah.
So when you detach it, you want to be able to take photos and stuff.
Rear-facing camera.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like a normal tablet has cameras on the back.
Why does your laptop have cameras on the back? That's weird.
Yeah, right. And that's the first telltale sign, if you ever see that laptop in the wild, that you've got this thing.
Yeah, definitely.
But I thought that was cool. And they had other stuff. I could go on.
Yeah. Yeah, they had a whole bunch of stuff. I think last year Lenovo brought a lot more sexy, but I think this year Lenovo is focused more on being practical.
Yeah.
They also had the webcam that attaches to that
The
to
magnetic,
the
motor mod thing, yeah.
So yeah, and I kept calling it the Moto Mods, and they were not happy with me. Uh, but
sometimes they're so sensitive.
They can be. But
okay,
I'm also kind of.
What's your number 4?
Yeah. So number 4. Okay, so yeah, we'll do this. So I went to go see a company this morning called Morelli. They are an auto parts manufacturer, basically. Like they don't make like, transmissions and stuff. No, they make like the components that go into building a car.
Yeah, they would call it a supplier, tier 1
supplier. There you go. And so they were showing off. It wasn't a concept car so much as like it was like pieces of a concept car, because they were showing us like where they're going with like where they think this automotive platform can go. They partnered with Amazon Automotive, with Qualcomm, with QNX, and there was a fourth person there. Oh, I can't remember the name of their company, but they're based in the Bay Area and they do audio. Anyway, so they were showing off this concept car, and one of the neat things that they were doing, and this isn't like mind blowing or anything, but they were showing off these lights, like these turn signals that you can do. But not only can you do turn signals, but they were actually like projecting things on the ground.
Yeah, that
would say like go, like it's safe for you to walk if you want to walk across. And like when they did a turn signal, it was like a huge, not huge, but like a big like glowing arrow projected on the ground. So not only would, cars next to you see you, but, cars that were like, or people that were like walking next to you could see it. So, and they did like a lot of cool things with like the lights on the car that could like display out and like do all these weird patterns and stuff. But and then they had like this sort of LED kind of display thing in like the front of the car that you could like spell like a ticker tape go or something like that. It was kind of neat. And then on the inside of the car, they had one like a wood dashboard, like a wooden like
and lights
dashboard
through it
that had an OLED panel behind it, and like when the panel's off, this looks like wood. And look, I know this is not new, but it was kind of cool. And I've seen this wood thing before, and I can't remember where.
BMW iX.
Maybe?
Center console.
Okay.
It's been done before.
I know.
But it wasn't an OLED display in their case. In their case, it's just a bunch of buttons.
Oh, okay.
Just look like wood when they're not on.
Yeah, no, this would like play a video and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I get it.
And it was all like, and they had it built in, so like the same controller controlled like that screen and the center screen, so you could actually like take things from the passenger side and like swipe it over into the middle screen.
So what's the name of the company again?
It's called Morelli.
Morelli,
and yeah, they're working with. I mean, I went to go see them because of the Qualcomm Automotive thing.
Cool.
But yeah, they just had a couple of like neat things there. Like I said, not mind blowing, but still kind of neat.
Yeah. So, it's interesting because.
Oh, I got another one. Yeah, go ahead.
As an aside, I was just going to say that, those of you who don't know this because, maybe you've never seen it before, but a lot of modern cars like EVs and higher end cars have, literally display projectors in the headlights.
Right.
The way they do the low and high beam is not by dimming part of the LEDs, the display. Like it's a matrix of LEDs,
right?
But it's like a DLP projector. It's literally hundreds of pixels by hundreds of pixels.
Yeah.
And they don't just dim half the thing. What they do is the cameras in the car see another car coming at you,
and it
dims only the part of the projector that the car is in.
Oh, that's cool.
So the car that's coming at you, that's what auto high beams are now.
Yeah.
The car that comes at you doesn't get blinded, but next to it, left and right, above, below, is super bright for you.
That's cool.
Right? And it does with people as well, so pedestrians don't get blinded.
Yeah, see, I drive like
and
really
now they do
cars.
Color, so they can do things like highlight the pedestrian in red.
Jeez.
You know what I'm saying?
No, that's
at
awesome.
Night.
That's
so
great.
So that's where we're going. Like, and it's not like in fancy cars. Like, I mean, I know it's a more expensive car than your average Corolla, but the Model 3 has this.
Okay.
Like, what I'm saying? It's not like unattainable, right?
Yeah.
But the point is that headlights, the reason they're so expensive to replace in a fender bender is that it's not just a bulb anymore. Like there's a freaking computer driving a DLP projector basically back then.
And can I say, like, just in general, when you think about where cars used to be and where cars are now, look, I know cars are more expensive than they used to be, but like, considering what cars are capable of these days, they're not that much more expensive. Like,
especially if you count inflation into the.
Oh yeah, especially. Yeah. But man, like it just like what a car is capable. A car is basically a rolling smartphone these days.
Yeah.
Which is just
awesome.
And
and so this projection things on the ground is very feasible.
Yeah.
My point is that we're not that far off.
It's a nice
there was a research experiment like that at one of those universities like Carnegie Mellon or something did. I don't think it was Carnegie Mellon, but it's like a few years back where they took one of those projector headlights from like a Mercedes or something, because back then it was only in high-end cars. Now it's trickled down.
Right.
What they did is they used the cameras to analyze in real time the snow and not project light where the snowflakes were.
No way.
I
mean, that is
and
really
so
cool.
When you drive in snow, you get blinded if you turn on high beams because, everything's just like it's snowing in front of you. Well, imagine it doesn't do that. Or in the rain, it doesn't highlight the. Yeah.
All right. So look, that is really cool. I am more excited because of it, because it is 12:30 at night, but I don't want to like overstate like how cool that is, because it's cool. It's not like mind-blowingly cool, but it seems pretty cool at 12:30 in the morning.
I had to go on a nerd tangent on this podcast.
Yeah. Do it.
All right. The next thing is for me number 4. Okay, number 4 for me is BMW. BMW had a really incredible demo with X-Rail today.
Okay.
So if you're still around tomorrow, I'm leaving. You can go to the BMW parking lot area there. They have their booth on the parking lot area, right in front of the Renaissance.
Okay.
And by the monorail station.
Yeah.
And you can get a demo. It's basically you wear a pair of X-Rail glasses in the car as a passenger, and they drive a little loop. And during that experience, and my producer Theo got to experience it too and thought it was really cool.
Nice.
You get it's like a heads-up display, but instead of being physically displayed on your windshield, it's the glasses doing it. And so it's head tracking and everything.
Yeah.
So what's cool about it is that, your parking sensors, in your car, that tells you like if you're about to hit something when you're parking, like the beep, 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 beep.
Yeah.
Or some cars now have the 360 view, which shows you like little lines where the object might be, like,
Yeah.
Well, imagine now this is AR. So you see a plane, like you see an orange bar outside the car where the object might be you're about to hit on your bumper, right?
Yeah.
And so like it's really cool.
But you're the passenger. How is that helpful?
But because they wanted to do the driving.
Oh, I see. But you would be driving.
You would be driving with this.
I see.
Another thing they showed is speed limit display, like really in your face. Another thing they showed, like the cones that you sometimes see on the freeway. Like,
sure.
Imagine virtual versions of that.
Okay.
So you have a construction zone, but you don't need cones anymore because it's projected for you.
Wow.
But for the passengers, they had entire games. They had like one of those Mario games where you had to like collect the little coins as you're driving along, and your gaze was aiming it, right?
Yeah.
And so it's really kind of fun. But what I thought was cool about it is that, it's inevitable that in 5 years or so, we're going to wear glasses like these. Like you and I wear prescription glasses.
Yeah.
But we're going to wear glasses like these that have an AR display in them.
Yes.
And talk to our smartphone, talk to our car, talk to our laptop, and are going to overlay very basic information over everything for us, right?
Yeah.
And so imagine instead of getting in your car and having all these displays fire up, right? I mean, you still have them, but imagine, I think we're going to go through a point where we have maximum display in car, and then it's going to probably reduce because we all have displays on our faces.
Right.
And then at that point, you get in your car and you get information from the car displayed for you, whether you're a passenger or driver. And another thing they showed is, the sun visor. Put down the sun visor as a passenger, and it becomes your screen for watching a movie.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You know?
That's awesome.
Because it's blocking the light anyway.
Yeah.
And so they had this this ad for a BMW playing, and it was head tracking, so it was always staying in the same place no matter where it was. It was really cool.
That's cool.
So kudos to BMW and X-Rail for this collab. And, it's pie in the sky because that's not happening today.
Yeah.
Because X-Rail is pretty affordable, but it still requires a phone or a computer because it's just a display.
Yeah.
And the cars obviously don't have the ability to drive that. And we can't all afford a pair of AR glasses and wear it all day long because of battery and stuff. But I think it was an interesting proof of concept for me. What's your number 5?
Okay, so I can't decide what my number 5 is, so I'm going to bang them out real quick.
Well, bang out some things you saw that were, because I'm in the same boat. Like my number 5 is really a hard one.
I'm going to give you a triple hit here. So the first one is a company called it's their sunglasses called by Dusk. Their audio glasses by Ampere, I think is the name of the company.
Okay,
and these are not new, but they're automatically darkening glasses that you can hit a button.
Oh, we were pitched that, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can hit a button.
So instead of transitions or whatever they're called or whatever you have.
Yeah.
My producer.
These are instant.
So
you hit it.
Yeah.
And so my big thing with audio glasses is when I go to Target, I'm driving along and I want to listen to a podcast. Now, when I get to Target, I have to make a choice. Do I stop listening to my podcast, or do I be that douchebag walking through Target with sunglasses on? Right?
Come on.
So
everybody walks through Target with sunglasses on.
Homie, don't play.
We're all hipsters and we're at Target.
So what you do is when you get to Target, you hit the button and they become clear. Bada bing, you're just wearing glasses. So they have an original version now, but they're coming out with a newer version that has allows more light through, and that's coming out this summer. So that's one. Number 2, one cool thing that Qualcomm Automotive is doing is using generative AI, an LLM that is programmed into the car with the car's auto user manual. So you're driving along with your car, you get a warning light, a dummy light, and you can say, hey, Snapdragon, what's that light mean? And it's going to come back and tell you what the light is, what the warning is, what's wrong with your car. And then it'll actually go out in the cloud and connect you with a dealership to make an appointment to get the car fixed.
Very cool.
So that's pretty cool. That's number 3, or that's my second one. And then the third one is a thing called Next Playground, which is the easiest way to describe it is imagine like a VR headset, but more like Microsoft Kinect, where you don't have to wear a headset. It just does motion tracking, but it can actually track like multiple people doing the same game. And like, even if you have like a busy background or something, they were doing a demo for me where they had like 2 of them up in front of a TV playing like a Beat Saber clone. And there was another woman sitting behind them on the couch, and she was waving her arms, and it was not tracking her. It was just tracking those 2. So that's pretty cool. I have that coming. That's going to be a review on /gear. So
awesome.
Yeah. So that's my 3.
All right. My number 5 is going to be a bunch of things I'm going to rapid fire through. Realme was here launching the Realme 12 series, which includes a Pro Plus, essentially a high-end mid-range or affordable flagship with a telephoto. So similar to the GT5 Pro they have in China.
Nice.
And so that's really nice.
Nice.
And then Hyundai Mobis was here.
Okay.
And earlier this year, they kind of showed us a video. They took an Ioniq 5, the electric car from Hyundai.
Yeah.
And they removed the motors that drive the wheels that are normally mounted between the wheels.
Yeah.
And they put motors inside the wheels called hub motors.
Oh, cool.
Right?
Okay.
That's nothing new.
Yeah, I know.
But now they made the wheels so that they can pivot 90 degrees fully.
That's cool.
Individually, all 4 wheels.
Okay.
So go to my Instagram and look at my reels and you'll see some of that. The car can move sideways. It can translate.
That's nice.
It can rotate on itself because the wheels can all go at an angle like that.
Take that turn.
Right?
Yes.
And so basically by making a small modification to an EV, you have this whole new maneuverability.
Yeah.
And so parallel parking becomes, pretty much all you need is an inch in front or behind your car and you can parallel park now.
Might be overestimated a little bit.
I mean, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But it's really cool. And it's still only obviously a concept. As a car nerd, there's a lot of complexity around hub motors, which are in-wheel motors. Sure. They've been around forever, but it adds weight to the wheel, which kind of change the suspension tuning and causes problems. But there's also the reliability and a bunch of stuff. This is very much, but it could show us where once we perfect hub motors, where we could go. Nice. And it also makes from basically Michael Jackson like car dancing.
Heck yeah.
The moonwalk, but with a car. Mm-hmm. And then what else did I see that stood out? Mercedes had some cool stuff at their booth. They have the G-Wagon Electric, the EQG. Okay. They had one prototype there. They had the CLA concept, which is going to become their most affordable EV very soon. Nice. It's basically a competitor to Model 3. Mm-hmm. And it's from the ground up a software-defined vehicle for the first time, like it should be. Yeah. Tesla's been that forever. The Chinese are starting to do it, and the traditional car makers are slowly getting into it. Yep. Where, as you said earlier, it's a complete smartphone on wheels. The whole software is owned by Mercedes, not the suppliers. If you look at current cars, a lot of the subsystems, like maybe the way the seats are controlled, it's a module that's made by another company. Yeah. If the software needs to update on that, it's not Mercedes doing it.
It's a mess.
It's the supplier having to, and then it causes delays, and you can't really do OTA because you're not really doing OTA if that part can't be updated, right? Right. So that's why a software-defined vehicle is important. But there's other stuff that they did. A bunch of car companies, including Mercedes, introduced AI assistance with generative AI in their cars, right? That was predictable. Obviously, Volkswagen did it with the ID.7 here. Mercedes did it. Qualcomm, of course, showed that. Kia had a bunch of EV concepts for upcoming EVs, like the EV3. They have the 6 and the 9 right now already. Yeah. The EV-C would be a small CUV crossover. Kind of competes with the Volvo EX30, should be coming out in 25 or so. And then they also had this modular platform for commercial vehicles. I'm not talking about big trucks. I'm talking about vans, delivery vans, like the stuff you see that Sprinter does right now, for deliveries, or like what Rivian's doing with their van, right? For Amazon. Yeah. Imagine a platform that can be modularized and changed into, a small pickup, a van for delivery,
ice cream
truck, yes. Whatever it might be, and all electric. And they showed that here as well. Nice. And that was cool. And I think that's pretty much like what's standing out for me. I mean, there's so much technology that was showed. Samsung showed all these folding and tablets and phones. They showed a Z Flip that can flip in both directions.
Oh, really? Yeah. Yeah. I never made it over to Samsung.
But that's Samsung Display, right? Yeah. And then LG showed transparent OLED galore. They had a transparent micro LED, which is not OLED, which is interesting.
So it sounds like I need to go to Samsung tomorrow.
I should go to LG as well. LG. Apparently, some journalists / creators got access to see the Sony Honda collaboration car, but it's becoming real and it's happening, and so Sony probably has that at their booth. Nice. Or Honda. Honda introduced a couple of concept electric cars that literally look like they're straight out of a 70s sci-fi movie. Mm-hmm. They're basically like giant vacuum cleaners. Like the Dustbuster type design, super aerodynamic and sleek and cool, very futuristic. But I mean, this is off the top of my head. All this, I saw so much stuff.
And I mean, like the thing is, like a lot of what comes out in CES is never going to see the light of day. But I think like the products that we've covered, especially in this podcast, and like I think most of the ones that I went to see, I mean, these are all legit things. These are all going to be coming out. These are all going to be. I mean, maybe they won't be successful, but I think they will at least ultimately turn into consumer products that you'll be able to buy, which is exciting. Yeah, which is exciting because I mean, like, it can be really hard to separate the wheat from the chaff in CES. So, but I think a lot of what we saw it has a real shot, and that's exciting. It's good to know that like what you're seeing now is going to be out there someday.
Exactly. Another thing that stood out, last thing for me, as my in my fifth category.
Kind of like 7A at this point, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, whatever. But interestingly, I saw something at Showstoppers that was cool. Which, it's rare for me, not because Showstoppers is I think it's awesome, but generally,
Please say handy.
I find that those three, Unveil, Pepcom, and Showstoppers, it's hard for me to get super excited. This is Eureka, the vacuum manufacturer, showed a washing machine, which is also a dryer, combination. A small unit
I know
that
exactly
you see.
Where you're going
You
with
see
this.
them in Europe. Like in North America, we have separate dryers and washer. But in Europe, generally in the kitchen, there's one box that's your washer dryer front load, and it does both.
Yep.
Now imagine, and this is the kind of thing where like, of course you do that. Imagine the bottom of the washing machine is a dock for your robot vacuum / mop. And the whole thing comes as one unit.
Yeah.
And the robot comes out, cleans your kitchen and your living room by mopping and vacuuming, goes back in. And it's got all the piping, of course, because it's a washing machine for the water and the cleaning and of course you do that. I wouldn't be surprised because Eureka is not as big as a company as Samsung LG, that Samsung LG makes something like this next year as a completely viable product that anybody can buy for a reasonable amount of money.
Yeah, but who's your customer there? Are you looking for someone?
Urban, small spaces, and you want an all-in-one solution.
Urban small spaces that happen to need a washer and a dryer and a robot vacuum cleaner. It feels a little niche. I'm just saying.
I think in Europe it's going to be hit. I think in small cities,
I can see that. New construction, I think, has to be your target there.
But like I tell you, like my place in Vancouver, it's a small 1-bedroom, 600 square foot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to have a full-size washer and dryer.
Do you have a full-size washer and dryer?
I do not.
Okay.
Right now, I just have a combination, one piece, and it's small, but it's not as small. Of course, it works great.
Well, then you're not.
They've been around in Europe. No, but the point is, if I had to, I have a robot vacuum that takes up more real estate right now.
That's true.
I mean, it's like it's kind of a given.
Yeah, no, I see where you're going with that. I have a. I'm a cynical.
I'm just saying. This is my point. I somehow got excited by this.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think Eureka got excited about it too. So I didn't go see Eureka because that actually fell to my colleague Dave McQuilling, who was here with Flash Gear as well. So he's the one that got the story behind everything, and so I'm going to be interested. I'm going to check out his article because I want to see what the story is here, but. I'm wondering how big of a customer base that is. That's getting.
See,
all three
I don't even think about
that.
I just think it's cool.
Oh no, it's cool, sure, but how are you going to sell it? That's all.
I think Europe is a big market for that.
Okay.
Once people are ready to replace their washer and dryer, they just get that instead.
USA,
and they get a robot.
USA.
And people in San Francisco and smaller studios and whatever, New York City, Adam, you want to tell people where they can find you on the internet? All your handles.
But are they going to want to hear me? No,
Come on.
Yeah. I am Adam. I am Dead Technology at all the things. I have a podcast / YouTube channel, more of a YouTube channel than a podcast. Let's be honest. Which is youtube.com/benefit of the Dowd, and that's spelled like my last name, DOUD. And so that's where you can find me on the YouTubes and on Instagram and on Threads. You're looking for Dead Technology on the socials, Benefit of the Doubt on the YouTubes. And if you want to stop by, I live in Chicago.
There you go.
Yeah.
And you know where to find me, folks. I'm at Tankgrl. It's TNKGRL, like the comic book character. Just drop the vowels and you get my handle on Twitter, on Threads, on Insta, on Blue Sky. So find me there. Find Adam there too. And we can chit chat about this podcast, ask us questions, whatever you want.
Yeah.
And then that the podcast lives at mobiletechpodcast.com on all the big platforms. So subscribe, tell your friends, I'm talking about like Android, Apple, Spotify, Pocket Cast, all that good stuff. And then the YouTube channel is youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast. There's a bunch of videos there, like unboxings and reviews and stuff. roughly monthly. It's not very busy. And then if you want to help me out financially, there's a Patreon, which I would really appreciate you considering. If you want a video version of this podcast, I publish that a couple of days in advance of the audio version. And you get to see us nerd out. And sometimes we show devices. And also there's bloopers. And, it's a small fee every month, but it's totally worth it. So if you want to help me out, that's one way to do it. There's other perks there as well. But patreon.com/tankgirl, that's patreon.com/TNKGRL. And I want to take a minute to thank our sponsor, Infineon. Infineon Technologies is a global semiconductor leader in power systems and IoT, and on a drive towards decarbonization and digitalization. At CES 2024, the company demonstrated a number of applications showcasing these solutions in automotive applications. Listen to my chat with Infineon's Bill Stewart about where you can find the company's solutions in various vehicles, and specifically electrical vehicles or EVs. And I want to thank you, Adam, for being my guest yet again.
I want to thank you for having me on yet again, and I promise you I will return the favor shortly.
Awesome. And brought to you by CES 2024 at 1 a.m.
And a dangerous lack of sleep.
Exactly. So stay tuned. We'll have another show next week. And cheers, everybody.
This has been the Mobile Tech Podcast with Tank Girl, proudly presented by worldpodcasts.com. You can visit us online at mobiletechpodcast.com.